Imagine being too afraid to speak the language you love, worrying about making mistakes every time you open your mouth. Sounds familiar? Well, that's exactly how I felt. But what if I told you that speaking English with ease is within your reach? Join me, Estella, as I take you through my journey of turning my fear into confidence and learning how to speak English effortlessly, step by step. Ready? Hello, my name is Estella. Today, I want to tell you a story. This is a story about how I learned to speak English with ease and confidence. But let me tell you something. This didn't happen in one day. It wasn't like waking up one morning and suddenly being able to speak English perfectly. Oh no, it took time, practice, and lots of effort. When I started, speaking English felt hard. Words didn't come out right, and sometimes I was afraid to even try. I thought, what if I say something wrong? What if people laugh at me? These thoughts made me nervous and scared. But one day, I decided I didn't want to feel this way anymore. I wanted to speak English without fear. So, I started learning step by step. I tried little things every day, small habits that helped me grow. Over time, I discovered special tricks, fun ideas, and simple techniques that made learning English easier and more enjoyable. Now, I can speak English with confidence, and I feel happy when I talk to others. That's why I'm sharing my story with you. I hope that my journey will inspire you to start your own. Just remember, speaking English doesn't have to be scary. It's like learning to ride a bike or play a new game. It takes practice, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes fun. So, are you ready to begin your journey of speaking English effortlessly? Let's start together. I grew up in a small town, a place surrounded by green fields and small houses. It was a peaceful town, but there was one thing missing. People there didn't speak much English. At school, our teachers taught us English. We learned how to read and write, but speaking English? Oh, that was very hard for me. Whenever I tried to say something in English, I felt strange. My mouth would not move the way I wanted it to. It felt like my tongue was tied up in a knot like a string that wouldn't untangle. My mind would go blank, and I couldn't think of any words to say. Even saying a simple sentence like "I like apples" felt scary. I was very afraid of making mistakes. In my mind, I kept thinking, what if I say the wrong word? What if people laugh at me? What if they think I'm not smart? These scary thoughts made me feel small, like a tiny mouse hiding in a corner. So, instead of trying, I stayed quiet. I would sit in the classroom listening to my classmates. Some of them could speak English so well. I wished I could speak like them. I would watch them, feeling a little sad and wishing I had their courage. One day, something surprising happened. My teacher, Mr. Lewis, noticed that I wasn't speaking much in class. He was a kind teacher with a big smile, and he cared about all his students. After class, he called me over. "Estella," he said gently, "I see that you don't speak much in English class. Is something bothering you?" I looked down at my shoes and mumbled, "I'm scared, sir. I'm scared of making mistakes." Mr. Lewis smiled kindly and said something I'll never forget. "Estella, speaking English is like learning how to swim. Imagine standing by the side of a swimming pool. You can't learn to swim if you just stand there and look at the water. You have to jump in, and when you jump, you will make splashes. Those splashes are like mistakes. They are a part of learning. Without them, you can't improve." His words made me stop and think. I realized he was right. I would never get better at speaking English if I didn't try. Mistakes weren't something to fear. They were just steps on the path to learning. From that day on, I decided to take small steps to overcome my fear. And that was the beginning of my journey to speak English. I decided to follow Mr. Lewis's advice because I wanted to speak English confidently, just like he suggested. He told me to start small, so I did. The first thing I did was practice English alone at home where no one could see or hear me. I felt a little shy at first, but I told myself, this is my practice time. It's okay to make mistakes because no one is watching. To make it fun, I stood in front of the mirror in my room. I pretended I was talking to someone like a friend or a teacher. I said simple sentences like, "My name is Estella, and I like reading books." At first, it felt a little funny, and I even laughed at myself, but I knew it was helping me. I looked at my reflection and tried to make my words clear and my voice confident. Sometimes I imagine myself introducing myself to a new friend or answering a question in class. The more I practiced, the more natural it felt. Next, I wanted to learn more English words. Mr. Lewis told me that knowing more words would help me talk about different things. So I started labeling the objects in my room. I grabbed some sticky notes and a pen. First, I looked at my chair. I wrote the word chair on a sticky note and carefully stuck it to the back of the chair. Then I said the word out loud, chair, chair, chair. I pointed to the chair and repeated it again. This is a chair. I moved around my room, labeling everything I could see. I wrote table on another sticky note and placed it on my study table. Then I wrote bed and stuck it to my bed. I even labeled my books, my lamp, and my closet. Every time I walked past one of these objects, I stopped for a moment, read the word, and said it out loud. For example, when I saw the word lamp, I would touch my lamp and say, "This is a lamp." It became a little game for me, and I enjoyed learning new words this way. Doing this helped me connect the English words to the objects around me. Whenever I sat on my chair, I thought, "This is a chair." When I turned on my lamp, I thought, "This is a lamp." These words started to stick in my memory because I saw them and said them every day. Little by little, I noticed that I was remembering these words without needing the sticky notes anymore. I didn't have to look at the labels to know the name of each object. This made me feel really proud of myself. It was like my room was teaching me English, and I was getting better every day. Starting small like this made learning English less scary and more fun. By practicing in front of the mirror and labeling things in my room, I realized that even small steps can lead to big improvements. It gave me the confidence to keep going and to believe that one day I would speak English easily and naturally. One day, my teacher, Mr. Lewis, gave me some wonderful advice. He said, if you want to speak English easily, you need to listen to it as much as possible. At first, I wasn't sure how to do that. I thought, how can I listen to English all the time? Mr. Lewis noticed my confusion and added, start with something fun. It could be cartoons or movies in English. That sounded exciting, so I decided to give it a try. I began by watching my favorite English cartoons. They were colorful, funny, and full of simple words and phrases. The characters spoke slowly, which made it easier for me to understand. Mr. Lewis also told me to turn on the subtitles, the words that appear on the screen. When a character said something, I could read the words and match them with how they sounded. At first, it was hard to catch every single word. Sometimes I would miss what they said, but I didn't let that stop me. I focused on the overall meaning of the story. If a character laughed and said, "That's so funny," I understood they were talking about something silly. Slowly but surely, I started recognizing more words and phrases. After getting used to cartoons and movies, I tried something new. listening to English songs. Mr. Lewis told me, music is a fun way to learn because it sticks in your head. So, I listened to songs that had simple lyrics and catchy tunes. One of my favorite songs was about the days of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I sang along with the song, even if I didn't know all the words at first. Singing made me happy, and the more I repeated the song, the easier it became to remember the words. Songs also helped me learn phrases naturally. For example, in one song, the singer kept saying, "Don't give up." It sounded so positive, and I started using it whenever I felt discouraged. Music turned learning into a joyful experience. As I watched more movies and listened to more songs, I noticed common phrases like, "How are you?" and "What's up?" These phrases appeared again and again, so I decided to practice them. When I met my friend Mia, I said, "How are you?" just like I had heard in the movies. She smiled and replied, "I'm fine. How are you?" I felt so proud of myself. It was the first time I used an English phrase in real life. I also practiced with my family at home. Sometimes I'd walk into the room and say, "What's up?" My little brother would laugh and answer, "Nothing much." Practicing these phrases made speaking English feel less scary and more fun. By listening to English every day, I learned how real conversations sounded. I noticed how people said thank you when they received something or excuse me when they needed someone's attention. These polite words became part of my daily practice. For example, in a movie, a character dropped her book and someone else picked it up for her. She said, "Thank you so much." That taught me when to say thank you in my life. I also noticed how people used expressions like, "I don't know," or "let's go." These short and simple phrases helped me sound more natural when I spoke. Listening became the foundation of my English journey. It taught me new words, showed me how to use them, and gave me the confidence to speak. By watching cartoons, listening to songs, and practicing what I heard, I realized that learning English could be fun and exciting. Now, whenever someone asks me how to start learning English, I tell them, just listen. It's like a magical first step that makes everything else easier. When I first tried speaking English in front of others, I felt very nervous. My heart was beating fast, and my hands were shaking. I wanted to say everything perfectly, but when I opened my mouth, the words didn't come out the way I wanted them to. Instead, they got all mixed up and jumbled like a puzzle with missing pieces. I could see people looking at me, and that made me even more scared. I felt so embarrassed and thought, maybe I'm just not good at speaking English. One day, my teacher, Mr. Lewis, noticed how nervous I was. After class, he gently called me over and said, "Estella, I can see that you're trying very hard, and that's a good thing. But remember, speaking English isn't a race. You don't have to say everything quickly. It's better to slow down and focus on saying your words clearly. Even if you use fewer words, make sure you say them in a way that people can understand." His words made me think. I realized that I had been rushing because I wanted to get it over with quickly, but that only made it harder for me. I decided to follow his advice and start practicing in a different way. The first thing I did was practice speaking slowly at home. I stood in front of a mirror and said simple sentences like, "My name is Estella," or "I like reading books." This time, I didn't rush. I took my time to say each word carefully. It felt strange at first because I wasn't used to speaking so slowly, but it helped me focus on how the words sounded. I also started pausing between sentences. Before I said the next thing, I took a moment to think about what I wanted to say. For example, if I wanted to say, I went to the park and played with my friends, I would pause after I went to the park and then say the rest of the sentence. This gave me time to organize my thoughts and made my sentences sound much better. Another thing I practiced was pronunciation. There were some long and tricky words that I always struggled with, like comfortably. Instead of trying to say it all at once and getting confused, I broke it into smaller parts. I said, comfortably, slowly, and clearly. Breaking words into parts made them much easier to pronounce, and soon, I didn't feel scared of long words anymore. Day by day, I got better at speaking slowly and clearly. I realized that when I didn't rush, I felt much more confident. Even if I made a small mistake, I didn't feel embarrassed because I knew I was improving. Mr. Lewis's advice changed everything for me. Slowing down helped me speak without fear, and I finally started enjoying the process of learning English. Now, I always remind myself that it's okay to take my time. Speaking clearly is more important than speaking quickly. One day, I was trying to speak in English, but I realized something. When I wanted to say something, I was thinking in my own language first, and then translating it into English. It was like I had to stop and think really hard before I could speak. This made it harder and slower to speak English, and I didn't like that. Then my teacher, Mr. Lewis, told me something that changed everything. He said, if you want to speak English easily, you need to start thinking in English, not in your own language. I thought, that sounds hard. How can I think in English? But Mr. Lewis explained that thinking in English would help me speak faster and better. At first, it felt a little scary. How could I think in English when I wasn't used to it? But I decided to give it a try. I started with small things. In the morning, when I woke up, I tried to think in English. I asked myself, what will I wear today? I thought about it for a moment and then said in my head, I think I'll wear my blue dress. This was simple, but it was a start. Next, when I went to the kitchen to cook, I tried to say what I was doing in English. I looked at the vegetables and said, I'm cutting the vegetables. Then, I looked at the pot of water on the stove and said, I'm boiling water. It felt strange at first, but after a while I started to feel more comfortable. I kept doing these small things every day. Every time I did something, I would try to think and say it in English. I stopped needing to translate from my own language, and English started to feel more natural to me. By practicing little by little, thinking in English became easier. It was no longer a hard thing to do, and it helped me speak faster and more confidently. One day, Mr. Lewis, my teacher, gave me a big suggestion. He told me to join an English conversation group at the library. At first, I didn't know what to think. I felt a little scared. The idea of talking in front of strangers made me nervous. I thought, what if I make a mistake? What if they laugh at me? But Mr. Lewis said something that helped me feel better. He told me it's okay to make mistakes. This group is a safe place where everyone is learning, just like you. I remembered his words and decided to give it a try. When I arrived at the library for the group, I saw a lot of people. Some were sitting quietly, waiting for the group to start. I took a deep breath and joined them. At first, I felt shy. Everyone was talking to each other, and I wasn't sure how to start. But then, the group leader, Mrs. Green, began the meeting. She smiled at everyone and said, today we're going to practice speaking English together. Don't worry if you make mistakes. The goal is to practice, learn, and have fun. That made me feel a little better. I realized that no one was going to laugh at me. Everyone was there to help each other. We started practicing simple conversations. Mrs. Green divided us into pairs, and we practiced things like introducing ourselves and ordering food at a restaurant. In my first conversation, I said, "Hello, my name is Estella. What is your name?" It felt a little funny to speak in English, but I was happy to try. The person I was talking to said, "Hello, Estella. My name is Jane." We practiced ordering food too. I said, "I would like a sandwich, please." And Jane said, "I would like a pizza." It was fun to talk in English, and I felt a little braver with each sentence. One day, Mrs. Green gave us a new challenge. She asked me to pretend to be a shopkeeper. "Estella," she said, "today you will greet the customers and answer their questions in English." I felt my heart race. I had never done anything like that before. What if I said the wrong thing? But then I remembered what Mr. Lewis said about making mistakes. I took a deep breath and started. "Hello, how can I help you today?" I said in a shaky voice. The person playing the customer asked, "Do you have any apples?" I answered, "Yes, we have apples. Would you like to buy some?" I felt nervous, but as I kept talking, I started to feel more confident. I didn't make perfect sentences, but I made an effort. That was what mattered. After each role play, I felt a little bit better. I made mistakes, but no one laughed. Everyone was encouraging, and that made me want to keep practicing. I realized that speaking with others in the group was the best way to learn. The more I practiced, the easier it became. At first, I didn't think I could speak English with other people. But by practicing in the group, I grew stronger and more confident every time. Joining the English conversation group was a big step for me. I learned that speaking with others is the best way to practice English. It helped me become braver and more confident. I also learned that making mistakes is okay. The most important thing is to keep trying and practicing. Now, whenever I feel nervous about speaking English, I remember how much I've grown in the group. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to ask for help. Speaking with others is one of the best ways to get better at English. One day, Mr. Lewis, my teacher, gave me some fun phrases to help my English sound more natural. These phrases are called idioms. They are special sayings that we use in English to explain something in a fun and easy way. Idioms don't always mean exactly what the words say, but they make our speaking more colorful. Mr. Lewis gave me 3 idioms to start with. Let me tell you about them. Mr. Lewis told me that when something is easy, we can say, "It's a piece of cake." But wait, this doesn't mean you're eating a piece of cake. It means something is very simple to do. For example, one day I had a math test. I was feeling nervous, but then I remembered Mr. Lewis's words. "It's a piece of cake." I smiled and thought, "I can do this." When I finished the test, I felt so happy because it was really easy, just like eating a piece of cake. Another idiom Mr. Lewis taught me was break the ice. This means to start a conversation and make everyone feel comfortable. Imagine you're meeting new friends at school and you're feeling a little shy. Breaking the ice helps make everyone feel happy and friendly. One time, I was in a new group at school and I didn't know anyone. I remembered the idiom break the ice. I said, "Hi, my name is Estella. What do you like to do?" That started the conversation, and soon we were all talking and laughing together. I felt much better because I helped break the ice. The last idiom Mr. Lewis gave me was hit the books. This means to study hard and focus on learning. It doesn't mean hitting your books with a stick. It means that when you want to do well in school, you need to work hard. One time I had a big test coming up and I needed to study. I decided it was time to hit the books. I sat at my desk, opened my book, and studied for the test. When the test day came, I did really well, and I was proud of myself for working hard and hitting the books. After Mr. Lewis taught me these idioms, I started using them when I talked to my friends. One day, my friend asked me if learning English was hard. I smiled and said, "No, it's a piece of cake." My friend laughed because they knew exactly what I meant. I also used break the ice when I met a new friend and hit the books when I needed to study for a test. These fun phrases made me feel more confident when I spoke English. I could talk to my friends and teachers in a way that sounded natural and friendly. When I used these idioms, I felt more connected to the language because they made my English sound more like the way people really speak every day. Learning idioms was like learning a secret code that only people who speak English can understand. It was fun to practice and use them, and I felt proud when I got better at using these phrases. It made me love learning English even more. One sunny day, Mr. Lewis, our teacher, told us something exciting. He said, "Today, we will each give a short presentation in class." A presentation means we talk about something in front of everyone. My heart started to race because I had to speak in front of my classmates. Mr. Lewis said we could talk about anything we like, and my topic was my favorite hobby. I felt a little nervous. Speaking in front of everyone was scary. What if I made a mistake? What if I forgot what to say? But then I remembered something very important. I had practiced speaking English a lot, and I had learned so many things. I thought about how much I had improved, and that made me feel better. At home, I started practicing my speech. I said, "I will talk about my favorite hobby, which is reading books." I practiced again and again. I said my words slowly so I could be sure everyone understood. I tried to say each word clearly, like Mr. Lewis had taught us. I even practiced in front of the mirror, like I was talking to the class already. I felt a little bit nervous, but I kept practicing. The more I practiced, the more confident I became. On the day of the presentation, I stood up in front of the class. My hands felt a little sweaty, but I took a big, deep breath. "I can do this," I thought to myself. I looked at my classmates one by one and smiled. I made sure to look into their eyes so they knew I was speaking to them. As I started talking, I used my hands to help explain what I meant. For example, when I said, "I love reading books," I held an imaginary book in my hands and made a motion like I was turning the pages. I felt a little more comfortable doing that because it helped me show my friends what I was saying. When I finished my presentation, something amazing happened. My classmates clapped for me. I felt so happy and proud. I had spoken in front of everyone, and they liked it. I learned that speaking English was not as scary as I thought. I could do it even if I was nervous at first. That moment taught me something important. Speaking English is a skill we can all get better at. With practice, we can all become confident speakers. Now, I'm not afraid to talk in front of others anymore. Just like I did, you can practice, take a deep breath, and speak confidently too. As time went by, English became something I used every day. I read simple English books with fun pictures and stories. At first, the words seemed hard, but I didn't give up. I looked at the pictures, guessed the meanings, and soon I could understand the words better. Reading these books made me happy because I was learning more about English every day. I also like listening to English podcasts. A podcast is like a radio show, but it's on the internet. There were many fun stories in the podcast with people talking in simple English. Sometimes the stories were about animals or about kids playing games. I listened to these every day, and the more I listened, the easier it became to understand. I even started to like hearing English words. I was becoming friends with English. Then something really funny happened. One night, I went to bed and started dreaming in English. I dreamed about playing with my friends, and we were all talking in English. When I woke up, I thought, wow, I am really getting better at English. This made me feel excited to learn more. Speaking in English didn't scare me anymore. At first, I used to feel shy and nervous. I thought I would say something wrong and people would laugh. But as I practiced more and more, I started to feel like English was just as natural as my first language. I could speak English as easily as I speak to my family or friends. It felt just like talking to my mom or dad at home. I promised myself that I would always keep learning English. I knew that if I kept practicing, I would keep getting better. I learned that language is like a river. It doesn't stop. It keeps flowing just like the river never stops moving. There are so many things to learn in English, and every day I can learn something new. Just like a river, learning never ends. It keeps going on and on. I know that there are still many new words and stories to explore in English. I will keep reading, listening, and dreaming in English because every day is a chance to learn something fun and exciting. English is like a big adventure, and I'm ready for it. When I think about how I learned to speak English, I remember feeling nervous at first. At the beginning, I thought I had to speak perfectly, but now I know that speaking easy English is not about being perfect. It's about practicing a little bit every day, being patient with myself, and making small changes. The first thing I learned is that practicing helps you get better. Every day, I try to say one new word in English. Sometimes I would say it wrong, and that was okay. I didn't give up. I kept trying, and every time I said a word or sentence, it got easier. So, when you practice speaking English, don't worry if you make mistakes. The more you try, the better you get. Learning something new takes time. When I first started, I wasn't very good at speaking English, but I didn't rush or get upset with myself. I was patient. I knew that it takes time to get better at anything. Like when you learn to ride a bike, you don't expect to be perfect right away. You keep practicing, and slowly, you start getting better. The same goes for learning English. Learning English is like building a house. It's not finished in one day, but every little thing you do helps you get closer. Maybe today you learn how to say hello in English. Tomorrow you might learn how to say thank you. Each time you learn something new, you're building a bigger picture. Little changes each day help you grow and improve your English. Another way I learned is by surrounding myself with English. This means I listened to songs in English, watched shows in English, and read books in English. The more I heard and saw English around me, the easier it became to understand and speak. Try listening to your favorite songs in English or watch a cartoon in English. It will help you understand better and learn new words. When I first started speaking English, I was worried about making mistakes. I thought I had to speak quickly, but I learned that speaking slowly helped me a lot. When you speak slowly, you can think about what you want to say and say it clearly. Speaking slowly also helps people understand you better, and it makes you feel less nervous. One of the biggest things that helped me was thinking in English. At first, I used to think in my own language and then translate the words into English. But that made it slow and hard. Then I started to try thinking directly in English. For example, when I wanted to ask for a pencil, I just thought, I need a pencil in English. The more I thought in English, the easier it became to speak. The most important thing I learned is that it's okay to make mistakes. When I first started speaking English, I made a lot of mistakes, but I didn't stop trying. Mistakes are how we learn. Every time I made a mistake, I learned something new. And soon, I wasn't making as many mistakes. So, remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are part of learning. Looking back, I can see that speaking easy English is not about being perfect. It's all about practicing a little every day, being patient with myself, and making small changes. I learned to surround myself with English, speak slowly, think in English, and not be afraid to make mistakes. If you do the same, you will get better at speaking English too. Just remember to be patient, practice, and never give up. If my journey inspired you, I encourage you to start your own. Speak to yourself, practice with friends, and take small steps every day. Remember, every word you say brings you closer to speaking English with ease. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and comment on this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, English Tone, and hit the bell icon so you never miss more inspiring stories and tips to improve your English. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.